How's it going, Guardians? Shifty here, and in today's video I'm going to be going over some must-buy items from Xur this weekend. So I'm going to try to make this one quick, so if you end up enjoying the video, make sure to hit that like button, and if you're new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe as well. Alright, so with Xur, the first thing we want to know is where he's located. This week you're going to find Xur in the tower, so just load up the tower and head to the hangar. When you're in the tower hangar, you of course want to make your way to the back and head up these stairs and talk to Xur. Now what is Xur selling this week? First of all, for the exotic weapon, he's selling the Fighting Lion. This is actually a primary breach grenade launcher. Now with the introduction of infinite primary ammo in Season of the Lost, this weapon was pretty heavily nerfed. However, with the patch that is coming with the 30th anniversary pack, this is getting a bit of a buff. Overall, I do think this weapon is worth picking up. It's not very usable in its current state, but once that buff hits, it should be in a much better spot. Then for the Hunter exotic, we have young Ahamkara's Spine. The armor perk here is called Wish Dragon Teeth. This increases trip mine grenade duration and blast radius, and ability damage grants trip mine grenade energy. Obviously, this exotic is built around the trip mine grenade. Unfortunately for this particular exotic this week, it doesn't have that great of a stat distribution. It's not terrible by any means, but it's not great. You can see it does have 15 mobility, which is great for your dodge cooldown. It has 10 discipline, which isn't amazing, but it is a grenade focused exotic, so higher discipline would always be better. And of course, the highest stat is 17 strength, which isn't anything special. If this is better than any of your current rolls or the collection roll, I would pick it up. Then for the Titan exotic, we have Ursa Furiosa. The perk here is Ursine Guard, and it makes it so you move faster while guarding when Sentinel Shield is active. Guarded damage converts to super energy when the super ends. This has historically been a pretty great piece of armor. However, recently it did get a nerf, so you can only get about 50% of your super energy back at maximum. The stats on this one are pretty evenly distributed. You have 14 recovery, which is a standout, 12 discipline is alright, then the 8 intellect isn't great, especially for a super focused exotic. Next up for Warlocks, we have the Aeon Soul. This piece actually has a selectable exotic perk. As you can see here, there are 3 different options. After the update that introduced these 3 options, this has actually become a pretty solid piece, especially for endgame content. Now if you look at the stats here, you have a 67 total stat. It does have 23 discipline and 14 recovery, which are pretty solid. Then that 18 resilience is a bit of a mixed bag. In high-end content, it can be the difference between life and death. With a certain resilience stat, you can actually resist certain snipers and certain Grandmaster Nightfalls. So overall, this is a pretty decent one. I would pick this up if you're a Warlock. Next up, I want to talk about the Legendary Weapons. Xur is selling a Lonesome with Rapid Hit, Swashbuckler, Armor-Piercing Rounds, and Arrowhead Break with a Range Masterwork. Overall, this is an excellent roll for a sidearm. Now, sidearms are kind of hit or miss for a lot of people, so if you love sidearms, I would recommend picking up this particular roll. If you're not a huge fan of sidearms, you can probably pass, although in the off chance that sidearms become really good in the future, you might want to pick it up anyway. Then the Oculus weapon that's being sold isn't terrible. You do have those Seraph rounds. Pulse Monitor is getting a pretty substantial buff in the 30th anniversary pack. You have Surrounded, which is an alright perk. And Handling Masterworks aren't terrible, but you definitely want something maybe like Range or Stability. Taking a look at this Cold Denial here, you have Unrelenting and Grave Robber, so this really isn't that great of an option. The Wishbringer shotgun here isn't too bad. You have Full Choke, a Range Masterwork, then you only have Hipfire Grip, but you do have Snapshot Sights. This one is kind of a mix between mediocre and decent perks. Now this Aikilos sniper rifle is a pretty solid option. Unfortunately, we're missing some decent barrel options here. However, we do have Triple Tap and High Impact Reserves, which are excellent perks for this particular sniper rifle, especially in PvE. Next up, we have a grenade launcher without any spike grenades. It does have Field Prep and Rampage, which aren't bad, but without spike grenades, it's not really a great option. In fact, the 2 options you do have here are pretty bad. Likewise, for the Crowd Pleaser grenade launcher, you don't have really great grenade options here. Pulse Monitor is going to get a buff like I mentioned, but then you have Unrelenting. As for standout armor pieces for Warlocks, it looks like the Gauntlets are a pretty solid choice. Here you have a 63 total stat, but with 24 intellect and 12 recovery. Recovery is of course important for all 3 classes because it's tied to your healing. For Warlocks, it's also tied to your Rift cooldown. Then you have 24 intellect, which is always going to help you get your super back quicker. As for Titan armor, there's nothing here that's really standing out too much. If you are a newer player and you have the materials, you may want to pick up some of these 60 plus stat armor pieces anyway. They could very well end up being higher than what you currently have. And finally, for Hunters, you're kind of in a similar boat to Titans. The Legendary armor really isn't sticking out too much here. Of course, there are several pieces over a 60 total stat, so pick those up if they're better than what you already have. However, for most players this probably won't be too helpful. Well, that is all I have for today's Xur video. If it helped you out, remember to like and subscribe. I just want to thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.